we are accustomed to avoidance. Avoiding our emotions, avoiding our triggers, avoiding the things that could make us feel unsettled. But actually, the key is attunement and awareness.
Hey, welcome back to Soul, a roundtable on creativity, expression, artistry, and vision. Today, we're with Jello de Reyes, who is a life coach and a content creator with a deep advocacy to see young people healed and transformed to live their lives with meaning and impact. Get ready for a touching conversation about his personal mental health journey, as well as the processes of self-awareness and transformation. I've been reading into yung Introspections na page mo online, which is terrific content. I love how it's authentic and educational. It relates with people. It strikes a chord, even with me, like it resonates. It's been super helpful for people struggling with mental health and even church trauma. What inspired you to start that project?
Okay. Introspections, originally, it's from my college column. I used to write in a newspaper in college. So my column name was Introspections. So eventually, I graduated from college. So I took that I named my personal blog Introspections. Para I can continue writing my thoughts. Kasi a column in a newspaper, in the opinion section of a newspaper, is actually just the personal opinion and thoughts of the writer. Yeah. Now, after graduating, I named my personal blog, Friendster pa yun, Introspections, and then I carried it until now. Now, when I was already working in the ministry, I launched my personal page, Facebook page, Introspections, and I didn't put my name on it. I wanted it to be anonymous because that's my a personal extension of my soul, so to speak. I wanted to be not identified with me as a full-time worker or with the organization that I represent. I wanted it to be just the musings of a simple man, an anonymous simple person who's trying to make sense of the world around him and is trying to find his way into the world as a Christian content creator. Wow. So if Introspections would connect, if the content that I produce, I put out would connect to anybody, it's not because of a person that's writing it, but because of the content, the essence of the and the meanings in every word that I put out. So basically, that's it. Eventually, so first it was a passion project about my thoughts. I really just wanted to put out my content out there and just share my thoughts to the world. But then eventually, after a few months of doing it and really just doing focus work into it, I realized that many of those who share my content and comment, or people who would message me, would say, "Thank you for writing this. These are exactly the thoughts that I wanted to share, but I couldn't put them into words. So thank you for writing this." Eventually, that clicked to me. That Introspections has now become a platform to lend my words to people who couldn't find their voice. And people who couldn't make sense of the world. I study neuro-linguistic programming now. It's just out of passion, no? And words are very important. I mean, you are a songwriter. You create content also. Meaning, you know the essence and the importance of words. Words are not just, it's not just a vocabulary. Words don't just carry dictionary meanings. Words carry the life of a person, all the experiences, all the meanings that a person puts into the word. So when I say I'm lending my words through my content to people around me, it does two things. Number one, it helps them make sense of the world around them and express it through the content that they produce. But at the same time, it creates some sort of a connection, a human connection with people who are thinking and feeling and experiencing the same things. So, yeah. That's Introspections. Sorry, that's a mouthful.
No, that's great. When I went to therapy for the first time last year, yung psychologist ko, we got into NLP also a little bit. What inspired you to start studying that?
Mm-hmm.
And then what's been your biggest learning so far siguro sa NLP?
I don't know when it started. Well, it started way back in 2019 pa. Now, actually, the path that I'm taking now, I realized it started way back before the pandemic. And I have imagined it. And eventually, now I'm here. What inspired me back then was, I used to be a church minister. I used to be a missionary for young people. The challenge for me back then was to translate biblical truths into a language that people would understand.
Right.
That people not from church would understand. Because sometimes when you dive into the study of the scripture so much, it tends to be alienated from regular people who have no knowledge about the Bible or about theological terms, about theology and whatnot. That pushed me to look for points of integration between theology and other fields of study like psychology, sociology, things like that. So parang doon, because my personal belief is that theology is not divorced from our realities, our human realities. Other fields of study enriches, these things enrich our theology. And theology informs how we understand all of these other branches of science that we're trying to study. So NLP is one of that. For example, and neuroscience. For example, the verse, I like quoting this, Romans 12, 2, diba? Very, very familiar for people who grew up in church. Be transformed by the renewing of the mind. I used to only think of that verse as about behavioral change.
Right.
Diba? Na do not conform. So don't do this, but be transformed by the renewing of the mind. So I need to focus on reading the word and all that. That's part of it. But renewing of the mind actually is not just about changing the way that I think. It's changing or allowing my mind to be transformed in my feeling, my thinking, and my choosing, so that it would take effect in how I behave.
It's like a whole mindset shift muna inside.
Yes, hindi lang mindset shift eh. Kasi the mind is such a very broad and abstract thing. It involves your thinking, your feeling, and your choosing. So the thought patterns, the belief systems, the emotional reservoir that we have, our convictions, our mindsets, that eventually translate into our behavior, our way of life. So, yun. So, Romans 12:2 is actually not just talking about behavioral change. It actually talks about being transformed in all of these facets of who we are. It's not just our mind, actually. It's the entirety of our soul.
Yeah.
Being transformed. The inner man being transformed. Kasi, di ba, yung mind, actually, ano siya eh, it can be also taken to mean as the heart, or the soul, or the inner being in New Testament language. Yun eh. All of these things.
So what is it that you got inspired to do? Like if you were to summarize it into one or two sentences, parang I was in this place doing full-time ministry and God called me to do this.
Yeah, I think the major pain point is increasing mental health crisis, especially among the young people. Our mental health facilities are very overwhelmed as we speak. We have very few specialists, counselors, psychiatrists, psychologists in the country. And the cases of people who are experiencing mental health problems are increasing by the day. If I were to put myself out there, of course, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a psychiatrist, but I know that I can do something, maybe not in terms of intervention and treatment and rehabilitation, but I can do something about prevention.
Wow.
Because awareness ngayon, pinag-uusapan, di ba? Awareness about mental health. We are now aware that there's a crisis.
Yeah.
But the next level of awareness that we need to fight for and we need to advance and propagate is awareness on how to prevent it from happening. Diba? Bago pa maging statistic,
Right.
bago pa maging disorder, bago pa maging patient, equip na natin yung mga young people.
Yeah.
Because they don't know how to take care of their emotions, or they don't know how to make sense of what's going on inside of them. And usually the social stigma is umaarte lang kayo, mahina lang kayo, ganyan. That's not true. And that's not helping the cause.
That's true.
But if we help young people, not just students not even young professionals, working professionals, we help them understand the experiences that they're going through and how they affect them inside, then mas makakatulong. Instead of we have 10 potential suicide cases, for example, we could lessen the number. If we have 10 potential patients that are experiencing anxiety and depression, we can lessen the number if we teach them proper prevention.
So what's one of the... I don't know if it's wrong to reduce it into behavioral, but like, what are some of the things that maybe I can do as good preventive measures? Yeah.
I always start with awareness, self-awareness. We are accustomed to avoidance, avoiding our emotions, avoiding our triggers, avoiding the things that could make us feel unsettled. But actually, the key is attunement and awareness.
Wow.
To attune ourselves to the things that trigger us, to the things that are happening inside of us, so that we could reach a point of self-awareness and self-understanding. We could never understand ourselves if we are not aware of what goes on inside of us.
Correct.
So, self-awareness. Kaya nga introspections. Introspections is a dive into the self. Not in a selfish way, but to hear the voices inside of your mind and make sense of it. Saan ba ito nanggagaling? Why am I feeling this way? Who said it to me first? Why did this voice become an inner critic in me? Who said it first to me? Who developed this? Why did I start believing in these things? Self-awareness. And when I develop awareness about my struggles, about the issues that haunt me, then I will be able to understand myself. Ang hirap pag di natin naintindihan yung sarili natin di ba? It turns into self-hatred It turns into self-loathing. Kaya ang daming nade-depress or they start losing hope kasi they couldn't understand themselves. When they begin to understand themselves, and then healing would come. And you know how I integrate my faith into this? I would like to believe that many of our issues in life will be healed if we would understand how to repair our self-image, how we look at ourselves. And the best basis for our self-image is the image of God in us.
Wow.
To repair the image that we have of ourselves is to bring it back to its original design, or to understand how God sees us, how God designed us, how God meant for us to live. Live with purpose, live with meaning, live with impact. That's why I organized the space. So from Introspections, I birthed a community out of there, and the community is called The Space. And I'm currently in the process of turning the space into a non-profit organization that trains coaches. I want to create a network of counselors and coaches and mentors so that everyone who comes into the community would have access to immediate help.
Wow. Galing. So the thing with me is nanonood ako ng mga YouTube videos or TikToks, and then they're like, the best way to bring yourself parang to get a better self-image is to remember the original design. Ganun. So I'd be watching and be like, okay yun ah. Sige, ganun. Then and then I get on with my day. But I'm not really introspecting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what is it that I can do to like move into actually looking deeper into myself? Kasi I'm used to like consuming it as content but not actually
That's why the design for what I do is to produce content and then get in touch with people through coaching and then connect them to a bigger community. Kasi if you're just self-awareness is good, but in order to translate, awareness is just awareness it can actually be a weapon turned against you if you only have awareness. But it's only through people who can walk you through it. People without judgment and people without agenda. Who can walk you through it through a journey of discovery and understanding and growth. Dun lang magme-make sense So if ever you encounter this content, for example, connect with someone, and the space is one of those. So, yon. So, what I do then, sabi nga, I do freelance coaching, di ba, at the start of this. So, I go to schools by invitation, and after my talk, I usually talk about emotional hygiene or self-awareness and personal growth, personal development. I talk about stuff like that. After that, I invite them to join the community. And the community, the online community, it's on Facebook. That's where I do other programs for my community members. So, mga webinars. I do free webinars there. I share contents there. And I open myself up to free coaching. If anybody needs it, they can just hit me up in that group. And I can arrange a schedule where I can talk to them via Zoom.
Right. Can I ask,
Sure.
in general, parang what, because I'm sure you've interfaced with many people already who've been going through mental health struggles. Mga creative people kasi we're very emotional
True.
And it's really
and that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, it's not a bad thing. But like it's a huge variety of people, diba? There are people na avoidant, there are people who what others might call wallowing, parang we love to really get deep into our emotions, but that's how we contemplate and process and then we express into creative arts. Is there anything that you've noticed as like not really a common denominator, but just something in common or a common thread that weaves together? Usually when you're creative, I recommend that you continue to do this to take care of your mental health.
I remember it's not a quote but I think it's a principle na I have been encountering again and again for creators to create from the point of brokenness.
Wow.
That sometimes the most beautiful thing that a creator can do is something that he or she created from a point of brokenness, because that's where we are so vulnerable and just so human and so just so honest about our reality. That's good to be comfortable with our brokenness, but to not stop there. To aspire wholeness, because what will heal the soul is not just awareness nga but it's knowing that there is actually a promise of wholeness. Just create from there. I think this is more for Christians. Diba, we are created in the image of God. And our God is a creator God. Our God called forth light from darkness. I think part of the charge for Christian creators is to call forth light from darkness. Let there be light, and then there was light. That in the middle of our personal darkness and our personal brokenness, we can call forth light. But first, we need to embrace the darkness. We need to be comfortable with the darkness and not to banish the darkness at once. This could be scandalous or controversial
go lang.
statement. Pero alam mo yun sa Christian, ako no, as a Christian, I want to speak for myself na lang.
Yeah.
Yung kapag ka meron tayong mga internal dialogue na negative self-talk, we are very quick to dismiss those as lies from the enemy. That may be true, but I think I'm at a point now where I would say don't dismiss them as lies right at once, but inspect the voice and see where it's coming from, because that's gonna inform you of a wound inside of you that God wants to heal. So, anong difference? Kasi halimbawa, one of my insecurities, for example, if I would hear an internal dialogue that tells me, you're a fraud, you're an imposter, you're not the real thing, you're just projecting to be someone else. Totoo yun eh, di ba? Parang we feel that sometimes, kaya nga may imposter syndrome eh. I wouldn't just dismiss it outright and say, lie yan, without addressing it. Because I need to address it. I need to take captive every thought and make it obedient to the truth of God, to Christ, di ba? So, bago ko siya i-dismiss, kasi being dismissive about these voices, it won't do you good eh.
Correct.
Parang ano siya eh, bahala ka dyan, no, we need to confront it. Diba? In order to take captive of this thought, I need to confront it. And so that I can make it submissive to Christ. So, I wouldn't label it as a lie that the enemy is injecting in my head. I would use that as a point of introspection for me. So that I would, and make that lead me to the truth of who God says, about what God says about me.
So as we wrap up, if people were to stumble upon introspections or onto the space, especially the creative types, what would be siguro what your wish for them, your hope for them?
Yeah. My hope is just the same with everyone else who would stumble upon my content, whatever in whatever platform. I hope that these contents would somehow help them inch towards their journey of healing and growth. Help them make sense of their experiences. I hope that they would find a glimmer of hope there.
Yeah.
I hope that they would not dismiss their own experiences and hate themselves for feeling certain things. They're not a bad thing for feeling certain things. But my hope in creating the space and in my introspections, so that somehow people would know that there are spaces out there who are willing to journey with them and who would understand and try to listen. We need spaces that are non-judgmental. Only in safety can trauma be healed. Kaya nga, di ba, naghahanap tayo ng safe space eh. That's my hope. I hope that they would find that. Maybe not in the space. If they find it in the space, then good. But I hope that they can find their own safe spaces or be that safe space for somebody. For creatives out there who are trying to make sense of the world through their arts, through their creations. Just keep creating. I think it's good to thank them for sharing a bit of their soul into the world. It's a brave thing. Writing, creating arts, creating music is an act of courage. Kasi for artists, you don't just put up something out there na parang cellphone, di ba? Na, not to minimize technology. Pero for artists, kasi for creators, it's an extension of who you are.
Yeah.
And when people judge your creation, it's like they're judging you. Diba? So it's an act of courage. But that also puts creators at a very vulnerable place. I hope that they can find their safe space. A non-judgmental space. Ano ba yung non-judgmental space? Ano ba yung safe space? we're accustomed to Christians saying that a safe space are a space where people will not tolerate you for your bad behavior and will point you to the truth. That's true. But a safe space also includes people who can tolerate you when you're not at your best.
Right.
And will just be with you and just love you through it until you find wholeness again. So that's my hope for everyone.
Jello, thank you so much.
Thanks,
This
Nate.
was such a great conversation. And that's it for the podcast. If you guys want to check out Introspections or The Space, the links are going to be in the show notes below. See ya.